has evolved so much just in the last few years. We're really seeing an incredible variety of tiles that emulate other materials that can be used now in wet environments or outdoor environments that never existed before. Like these, the one on the left looks like cane, the one on the right looks like a woven jute rug. We've got ones that look like silk wallpapers. The one on the right, I love it. It looks like a giant carpet tile. It's 5 feet wide, it's got texture, it's got that beautiful pattern. It looks like carpet, but it's tile. Some that look like wallpaper, including big porcelain slabs. And porcelain slabs have really changed what we can do in terms of design. It's given us some really interesting and somewhat limitless possibilities. If you want wallpaper in your shower now, you can have that because we have these beautiful porcelain slabs and beautiful tiles that really look like products that could never be in these unique environments before. And wood tiles have become so realistic. This one on the left, that really does look like wood. It looks like teak, looks like strips of teak, but that is tile. The one on the right is my barrel parquet tile. That is a 36 by 36 tile that you cannot tell it isn't wood. You get up to it, and even right before you put your hands on it, you still can't tell it isn't wood. So we're seeing this incredible variety of very believable tiles that look like other materials. And that is giving us as designers and architects the opportunity to create pattern and beautiful colors in places we couldn't do it before. The challenge, however, is how do we make those then look like what they're trying to emulate? Because if we have a tile that the manufacturer and the designer of that tile have gone through all this effort to make it look like wood or make it look like wallpaper, but then we don't have a follow through in our installation, it's just gonna look like a big tile again, which is okay. But if we're trying to emulate that product, how do we do that in a way that suits the material itself, Randy?
Well, a lot goes to preparation. Preparation is the key to everything, right? Excuse me. So when we, of course. So if we're going to be doing like this shower here, a good example with this shower, if it looks great, small, fluted looking, like you said, looks like teak, looks great. But imagine if the substrate isn't prepared right, and we go in there and say our back wall is off a 1/2 inch. And that instead of having little 3/4 inch slivers of wood going up there, it goes from a 1/4 inch to a 3/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, whatever. We see big tapers. Why? Because we didn't do our prep work to begin with. So we look at the other walls, got all this plumbing, the niches that are in there. All that needs to be accounted for. We need super flat, because you're talking about really large tiles a lot of time. So we need super flat installations. Our substrates need to be there. But yet we still got the plumbings going in there. We still got the niches, the backing. All these things go in there. These are all layers that get added in there. If we think we're going to go slap up some regular backer board and tile this and have you come up with the result that you're looking for, it's not going to happen. So that's why we need to get in there early. This might be something calls for old school. Go in there and plaster or float the whole thing and get it all set up the correct way. And yet that's a dying skill. Not a lot of people have those skills today. So if you don't have those skills, get trained, learn how to do it.
Well, you bring up a good point because, especially with this particular tile, you were saying something that made me think about, again, we don't often bring in our installers until the end of the project. That's not when we need them. We need them at the beginning when we're planning because, as you said, we may need, based on the size of the tile and the size of the spacers and the way we're going to install it, we may need to float that space in a different way than even the contractor would have been thinking about without his tile installer there to have that conversation.
Correct, and a lot of times we need tile installers that have these abilities because sometimes the guy that's bidding this job, they might just think they're going in and installing a regular tile. And when we get into the bigger and bigger tiles, we need people who are qualified to do it. And so a lot of times it just takes classes, learning. That's what we do at the NTCA here. We teach people how to install, how to prepare things right. So we end up with the results, at the end that looks exactly like you'd like it to.
Now I want to talk about grout again for a second. My designer tip, when you are installing a faux wood tile, my little trick is that I select grout that is darker than the tile. Anyone know why? I'll tell you. Because when you look at real wood on a floor, the space that's in between those pieces of wood, the planks of wood, it's a shadow. It doesn't have ground. So the shadow ends up being darker. So if you look at a hardwood floor, you're gonna see what looks like darker lines in between each of those pieces of wood. So then my trick is that I use a darker grout instead of a lighter grout because it's going to be more realistic for a wood look installation. However, Randy, how do you feel about something like this one on the right? This is a trick question because it's not an easy one. If we've got a pattern where we're trying to emulate, this one's trying to emulate carpet, how do we grout that without it still looking like big panels of tile?
We might have, well, good idea to do is do mock-ups and practice with different colors, and maybe we're needing to use multiple colors of grout to emulate the tile so that the shading matches what we're working with.
Which is interesting, and that's challenging. And so, I'm sorry, one more time. Do we have any tile installers in this room? Okay, so quite a few. So tile installers, how many of you have ever been challenged to install multiple colors of grout in one installation? Raise your hand if you've had to do that before. Okay, raise your hand if you thought that was a total pain. I know. But the ones who said it was a total pain, raise your hand if the end result was worth it. Okay, a few. Some are saying no, some are saying yes. So this is why I wanted to ask that question, because on this panel we have from the specifier through the fabricators and installers. And the communication that we set up has to start at the beginning of all of these projects. So as we as a team in the industry work together, we have to think in terms of teamwork, in terms of coming together so that we can communicate from the very beginning. So that as a designer or an architect, if I have a vision for one of these spaces, like the shower stall, I can't design that in a vacuum. It's my job to design it with my team in place of certified, qualified fabricators and installers who can have the conversation with me far in advance. We can do our planning together. We can do our materials selection together. I can say what it is that I'm looking for, these trends that I want to create, but I can't create them without the experts weighing in from the very beginning. So the moral of the story is communication, preparation, and maybe a little patience along the way.